Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful and historic neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Please be sure to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids. It's at Jedley Magic on Twitter, and it's at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram. We have a wonderful guest for you today. Our friend Nadine Poper is back to talk about two brand new books, Randall and Randall, and we'll also be speaking about Porky Pet and Muppet. Before we invite Nadine in, we want to invite you to join us in the beautiful city of Chicago. That's right, we are returning to Chicago February 8th and 9th to be part of Kids Expo, Schaumburg Convention Center, Schaumburg, Illinois. We are so excited. We've heard so many great things about Kids Expo, hundreds of fantastic activities. And the Reading with Your Kids podcast is going to be there. Come on over to our booth. Experience what it's like to be a guest on the podcast. And you may be featured on a future episode of the podcast. We're also going to be presenting my amazing and totally interactive magic show on stage. You may come up on stage and create some magic right there in your own hands. It's all happening February 8th and 9th. Kids Expo, Schaumburg Convention Center, Schaumburg, Illinois. Joining us on the line right now from Berks County in the beautiful state of Pennsylvania. She is returning to the show, and she's actually my favorite school librarian. Please welcome back to the show, Nadine Poper. Nadine, how are you?
I am great, Jed. Thank you.
Nadine has been on the show before talking about her books, Weenies and Bikinis, and I had the pleasure of performing at Nadine's school, and she has an excellent, the kids at her school are absolutely wonderful. Such energy and such great smiles.
Oh, yes, they are. I have to definitely agree with you there, Jed.
Yeah. And I love the fact Nadine has two brand new books out, but I really want to, every time I have an opportunity to talk about school libraries and how important they are, I want to take that opportunity because they're disappearing in so many schools. They've already disappeared in so many schools, and I think that that's just such a shame, and I want to talk more about it, but just can you give me just one or two sentences as to why you think it's so important for an elementary school or middle school or high school to have a great library?
Ooh, well, that's a tough one. I could talk about this all night.
Well, feel free to use 5 or 6 sentences. That's fine.
The power of a school library, a good school library program it just contains so many facets, and it can benefit in so many different directions, from just serving the students to even supporting the staff and the community. So, just like a public library, you think public library deals with the public, but a school library can do the public as well as the students and the families right there. So there's a good, strong school library program can make so many connections that are missing between what students need to learn and teaching them how to learn it. Our society is just so filled with information coming from so many channels that for young people, it's really a challenge to not only decipher what, that information is and how it relates to them, but to be safe with the information. And also giving them a space to explore different areas of curriculum and different interests. And if a school doesn't have that person or that space for these students and even the community, the families, it's really doing a disservice to the neighborhood for that school.
Yeah, I agree. And you're talking, as you're talking, I'm thinking, school is a place where, and a classroom is a place where a kid goes to learn what they're told they need to learn, to dive into the curriculum that somebody else has created for them. Whereas a library not only can support that, but a library is a place where a kid can go to learn about what interests them.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. There's the classrooms are regimented a lot more than the school library programs. And that's one of the reasons why I like my job so much, is because I get to have that flexibility, but also support the teachers too. So it's like a win-win for me and hopefully for them.
Absolutely. Well, I know, because I've been there. Nadine's library is just such a warm and vibrant and welcoming space. It's a place where the kids really feel safe. And like Nadine said, it's a place where kids can go and explore. And right now, what I want to do is I want to get in and explore these two new books that you've just published. The first one is called Randall and Randall, and the other one is called Porcupet and Muppet. Why don't we start with Randall and Randall?
Okay. What would you like to know?
Let's know about the who's Randall and Randall. Sounds like a law firm.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, no, it has nothing to do with law, but I chose that title, because when I was researching the characters, and first of all, I guess I should back up. The characters in the book are a goby fish and a pistol shrimp.
Okay.
And when I was researching them, I kept seeing the word Randall-lee spelled with two I's at the end of Randall, and I kept seeing Randall-lee goby and Randall-lee pistol shrimp.
Okay.
Sometimes they're called a snapping shrimp. And I thought, wait a minute, there has got to be something that connects these two, or a person. So sure enough, I just kind of continued my research, and I think I researched something like, marine biologist, Randall-lee or Randall. I didn't really know what I was, quote, fishing for, but I knew I needed to know why there was this Randall-lee in front of both names. And so sure enough, I learned that both species were connected to a man named Dr. John Randall. Oh. So I was completely it was exciting to come across that information. So I thought, well, wait a minute, wouldn't that be a fun title then, to have both characters named Randall? And hopefully I can pull this off without anybody, without the readers getting confused as to, who's talking. So in a nutshell, that's where the title came from.
Mm-hmm. And
pretty confusing.
And now the goby fish and the pistol shrimp, they're kind of symbiotic creatures, right?
Absolutely, yes. They're fascinating. When I was learning about them, I thought, if I find them fascinating, then readers will too, children will too. So the goby fish, this particular species of goby fish, it's a Japanese goby, and oftentimes they need a place to live. So this particular goby will stand guard, not stand, because he's a fish. I guess he can't really stand, but he will kind of just hover outside of the pistol shrimp's burrow. And what the pistol shrimp does, or snapping shrimp, what they do is they just bulldoze their burrow all day, just constantly. They're cleaning it out. They're taking the shells and the rocks and everything out of their burrow. But they're very vulnerable then to predators. So what the goby fish does then is it keeps its back end towards the opening of the burrow and keeps watch for predators. So if a predator comes near, then the goby fish will flick its tail. And the pistol shrimp then knows not to come out at that time. So then in exchange for that protection, then the goby fish gets to live in the burrow with the pistol shrimp.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
It is really well. What I'm just guessing that this is a great way to kind of talk to kids about cooperation and friendship and respect.
Yes, and the story, how I composed it was, obviously there has to be some sort of plot. Mm-hmm. So what I did was, my further research, I learned that the pistol shrimp does make this horrendous snapping sound with its one big claw. And it's enough to send sound waves throughout the waters, so much so that sonar equipment has been interrupted by a ton of snapping shrimp snapping at one time. This little tiny shrimp can do that. And so in the story, Randall pistol shrimp, of course he snaps, mm-hmm. and the goby fish, he sings, and while he's watching for predators. So, and I decided that because there are goby fish that will emit sound, mm-hmm. and to attract a mate and other reasons. So I figured, okay, well, I'll have him sing. So that's his annoying behavior. So eventually the two of them get on each other's nerves to the point where they have an argument, and the goby fish leaves. So I don't know how much you want me to go into it without spoiler alert or anything.
I think that gives us a great idea, and it builds up the drama and gives us a little cliffhanger. And as I'm seeing on your website, the story is based down in on the coast of Mexico, so kids will learn some Spanish too.
Yes. I interwove the Randall pistol shrimp. Mm-hmm. He speaks just a little bit of Spanish there, so just to drop them in a couple of spots.
Muy bien, muy bien. I speak enough Spanish to get myself in trouble. I learned all the bad words watching Netflix. Now tell us all about Porcupet and Moppet.
Well, that's another animal relationship story. That's not a symbiotic relationship mm-hmm. story. This is more of a predator-prey relationship story. And this one's pretty interesting. It's about a young porcupine, and a lot of people don't know that a baby porcupine is called a porcupet. So it's not like this is a word that I invented. Uh-huh. So a baby porcupine is a porcupet. And one of their only known predators is what's called a fisher cat. And a fisher cat is in kind of like the weasel uh-huh. family. And they're seen up in the woods of, the Northeast, and I think they're dotted in other areas of the country as well. And so the story is, Porcupet just loves to read. And I think my publisher, when they described the book, they said Porcupet is a bibliophile. He just loves to read. And so he's reading, and this is pretty clever. He's reading a book about a fisher.
Ah.
And there happens to be a fisher kind of lurking about. And every time Porcupet reads a fact about fishers, this fisher cat is performing the fact.
Uh-huh.
And poor little Porcupet doesn't quite know that he's reading about a fisher. He knows he's reading about a fisher, but he doesn't know a fisher is this other character that he's interacting with. And so it goes on to the end where the power of reading. Mm-hmm. And how is it that Porcupine or the Porcupet manages to not get attacked really by this fisher cat. And the fisher, his name is Moppet and he doesn't like to read. So then you got that message there that if he just would have read, mm-hmm. he might just know how not to get stuck with all the quills in his face at the end.
Very, very cool. I love that. It's fun to introduce kids to, different characters, different animals that they may find in their backyard or if they ever go on a hike in the woods and so that's just so much fun. I love that story. It's wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
What do the kids at your school think about the fact that their librarian is also an author?
I think they like that. They do check my books out. My books are never on the shelf, which is nice. And actually, to be honest, I haven't even read the books to them yet. I keep focusing on all my stuff I have to do curriculum-wise. Actually, the second grade teachers are doing a unit right now on narrative nonfiction, and my books aren't really narrative nonfiction. Mm-hmm. They are fiction only because the animals talk.
Right.
But there is a lot of fact mm-hmm. in both. So the second grade teachers will be sharing my books with their classes as a lesson, which is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Human beings have been learning through stories forever. And it's just such an effective way to teach kids. And I think it's much more effective to teach kids facts and figures through stories than to sit them down and expect them to just memorize things.
Oh, yes. And that's why I wrote the books the way I did, because there is story there. It's not just fact dumping. Mm-hmm. And like in Randall and Randall, you learn all about both animal behaviors mm-hmm. by their dialogue and by their trials that they have. And the same with Porcupet and Moppet. You learn all about the fisher behavior based on what Porcupet is reading mm-hmm. about him. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of done in a silly, hopefully engaging way. I got good reviews on the book that said that they were very good. So, I think they'll be really good, collections to anybody's library.
Yeah. And when you think about it, you think about kids, there are some kids, my kids there were some storybooks that they would want me to read over and over and over again. It was never a passage out of the encyclopedia. It was mm-hmm. it was always a story, something that engaged them, about characters that they loved, and they came away from those stories with a great deal of knowledge. So I'm really happy that you've created these books because I think they're, like you said, I think they'd be a wonderful addition to any family library.
Yes. Thank you.
Talk, one of the things I've heard is that a family that has a family library of just 20 books, having those books in a house increases a kid's likelihood or chances of going to a university. Have you heard anything similar to that? And is there any information that you can share with us that just kind of supports that idea of the importance, not only, we talked about the importance of having a great school library, but just of the importance of having a library in our homes?
Yes. Now, I don't have any facts off the top of my head, but I can completely concur with you. The more, and I've read this on various sources from American Library Association, American Association for School Libraries. There's so many organizations out there that they promote and they push the fact that, from birth, the more that children are exposed to our language, they're read to, that can only mean that their personal vocabulary, it will just soar. And, exponentially from birth to, say 5 years old, they could very well have a vocabulary of just so many words that, compared to children that aren't read to as often or even talked to on a regular basis. And by the time they reach school then at age 5, the children that are read to are so much more prepared for the demands of today's classrooms and than those that aren't. And why would we want to, get our children off on the wrong foot, sending them off to school with, not all the tools that they need. And one of the simplest tools is just to share the love of the printed word and the spoken word.
I agree. And that thing about vocabulary, as you were speaking that, I had kind of a flashback to the first time I toured Puerto Rico with my magic show. And I remember coming back and one of my high school classmates, who was at that time a high school principal, he came up to me, he's telling me how wonderful it was that I was able to go down there and perform in Spanish. And I said, well, it's not that big a deal. I just translated my show using like the 300 Spanish words I knew how to use. And so it's not that great. I'm not fluent. And he kind of stopped and he said, well, when you think about it, most people only use about 300 or 400 or 500 words, daily in their vote. We all kind of get stuck with the same words and same phrases and things like that. So reading with our kids, it does expose them to so many words that they wouldn't normally be encounter.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why it's so important even for parents who feel as if they can't read to their children, that they look for ways to, get themselves tutored, learn, to speak whatever language is, best fits in the home. And so they can have these relationships with their children and talk with them and read with them.
It is. It's so very important. I've said it so many times. The time that I spent snuggled up on the couch with my kids reading, they used to love to have me read Fox in Socks because I have a speech impediment, and if I'm tired and I'm trying to say a word that begins with F, I just mess it up. And so that was the book. I'd come home drive home from Philadelphia, and they go, great, this is the book we want you to read right now. But it was that time that we spent reading those books and laughing together and asking questions. It built the foundation. And it was the start of a conversation that continues today, and my kids are in their 20s right now.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it'll continue with their children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people talk about leaving a legacy. That's, I think, that communication, that conversation that will go from one generation to the next. I think that's the best legacy that we can leave.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also the ability to have conversations about topics that books bring up. That's also very, very important too. There's so many like attitudes that you can come away with on a book and open up conversations and various viewpoints. And so it really is a springboard. Reading is a springboard to how we can interact with, everybody, everybody in our world. The printed word is just so powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about the great conversations that we can have with our kids about people who are different, people from different cultures, people with different religions, different languages by reading a book like Randall and Randall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, Nadine, remind everybody where they can find you online.
My website is my name, NadinePoper.weebly.com. That's my website, so it's going to have all kinds of stuff on there. And if you want to know more about the actual publishing company and what else Blue Whale has published, BlueWhalePress.com too. And they'll have information on my books there as well. And there's a wonderful teaching guide, or activity guide, I should say, that they put together for Randall and Randall. So it gives more information about the animals, and there's some coloring pages and puzzles and information on the animals itself, as well as the back of the book has a lot of resources listed too, and where I got my information from.
That's great. That's great. Well, we really want to encourage everybody to check out Porcupine and Moppet. And the other book is Randall and Randall, the brand new publications from our friend, my favorite school librarian, Nadine Poper. Nadine, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Jed, for this opportunity. I really enjoy it.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Arlene Hio. She'll be here to tell us about her wonderful book, Bruce Wayne is Insane meets Ninja Kitty. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, I bet you were surprised. Yeah, I bet you when you received that author's copy of your book, that first author's copy of your book, and you held it in your hands, or you saw that your ebook was finally available online, and you looked at it and you felt this pride, then you were probably surprised to find out that now that your book exists, that you are the person most responsible for marketing the book, for letting the world know all about your book. Yeah, it's a big shock to a lot of people. Well, we want to let you know that you don't have to do all of that marketing and promotion by yourself. The folks here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast, we would love to help you. We have all sorts of great ways to help authors promote their books, to help the world know all about your great children's book. For example, we are inviting a limited number of authors to display their books at our booth at the Chicago Kids Expo February 8th and 9th. It really is a fantastic way to let thousands and thousands, they're expecting 10, 15,000 people at Kids Expo. All of those folks will be coming by our booth. That's a great way to expose those people to your fantastic book. We also have our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, which is a really exciting program that has helped many, many authors. So check it out today. You can go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the Author Services button at the top of the page, and find out all the ways that we can help you promote the book. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. We want to thank Nadine Poper. She is our favorite school librarian, and we want you to check out Randall and also check out Porcupine and Moppet. I want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. Be sure to check out the blog that she creates for every episode of the show at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support that she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. And of course, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much for making the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.